Chapter 3. Ranofer woke with the feeling that something important and fine had happened. He sat up, peering around him sleepily. Then he remembered his decision of the night before. Wide awake at once, he scrambled to his feet, and his eyes went automatically to the upper room. Was Gebu still sleeping, or had he gone to his work? No matter. I am not afraid of him, thought Ranofer. Seemed unnecessary, however, to court trouble by investigating the matter. He stole across the courtyard, which was dingier than ever in the cool morning light. There was nothing at all in the storeroom shelves except empty crocks and baskets and a dish containing the crumbs of last night's loaf. Gebu had not breakfasted, and Ranofer decided not to wait for him. Hunger was a better companion. Drinking deep from the water jar, he yanked his sash tight around his hollow middle and let himself out the gate. Running on fleet, silent feet down the street of the Crooked Dog, he felt frightened, but jubilant. Today he would begin a new life. No longer would he be a cringing puppy, ashamed of the welts on his back, avoiding Rake's eye. He would weigh the gold, every grain, and pour the ingots, and wash the sweep, and he would not carry home the wineskin when the day was done. Gebu does not want it, he would say to Babylonian. He bids me tell you he does not like your wine. Great Lord Ra burst over the eastern horizon just as Ranofer turned onto the broad road that edged the fields of the flower growers. Beyond the emerald fields, he could glimpse the surface of the river, jeweled with sunlight. A flock of pin-tailed ducks planed down over the papyrus marsh and vanished among the reeds. Sa, murmured Ranofer automatically, reminded of his lessons with the scribe. He halted and dropped to one knee, scratching the hieroglyph of the pin-tailed duck in the dust with his finger. By adding a vertical stroke beside it and the picture of a man kneeling, one could write the word Sa, son. Ranofer admired his handiwork a moment, then changed the kneeling man to a sitting woman, obliterated the stroke, and replaced it with a bread loaf. Behold, thought, daughter. Ranofer smiled. It gave one a sense of power to be able to write words. He wished, though, that he had not added the bread loaf tea. It reminded him of his empty stomach. He got up and hurried on. There were many people in the street now, calling greetings to one another as they set out for their work. Everywhere, once he had thought of it, Ranofer saw hieroglyphs. There on a doorstep was a wickerwork basket. K, yonder. Oh, there on a doorstep was a wickerwork basket. K. Yonder, N, the ripples on the water. The vulture kneeling above the slow-moving boats was the guttural sound. Ah! Even the boats themselves and the rising sun, the amulet on his wrist, and the beetle crawling in the dust were the same as the careful signs he had learned to draw on his clay tablet. He had not forgotten them. Perhaps if he urged his memory further, practiced each night as he lay on his mat, nothing seemed impossible today. Buoyant with hope, he turned into the street of the goldsmiths. Ahead of him, just emerging from the apprentice's quarters and finishing his breakfast as he ran, was the new boy, Heket. The two exchanged tentative glances, then Heket's snub-nosed face broke into a smile. May Ra shine upon you, comrade. And upon you, Ranofer returned eagerly. It was clear his rudeness was forgiven. Did you pour your ingot without splashing yesterday? He asked as they started on together. Aye, in a manner of speaking, the other said with a grin. Which is to say, I watched the second craftsman pour it. He will let you do it yourself today, Ranofer said. In spite of himself, his eyes strayed to the food Heket was eating as he watched. What have you there? He added, trying to sound unconcerned. Only a fig, Heket replied. He glanced at Ranofer, then looked again more closely. I have another. Will you eat it? I? Oh, no. I merely asked. I do not care for figs. They Ranifer's hasty protests were cut short by a dismal growling from his empty belly, which felt even vaster than the temple of Ammon this morning. Hecate, still watching him, dug a second fig from his sash and held it out. Come, take it, Ranifer. It will quiet your rumblings, as the man said when he tossed his right leg to the crocodile. Ranifer found himself grinning broadly as he imagined the crocodile's surprise. This Hecate must be the drollest fellow in Egypt. You look quite different when you smile, said Hecate, studying him curiously. Why do you not do it more often? I do not know. There, now I've made you solemn again. I should put a curb on my tongue. Here, take the fig. That should cheer you. Ranifer took the fig. The temptation was stronger than his pride. Thanking Hecate awkwardly, he set his teeth into the crisp golden skin. Pure honey dripped into his mouth with every bite. He thought he had never tasted anything so good. The sun was pouring into the broad courtyard of the goldsmith shop, flooding ovens, benches, crucibles with a radiance that made even the washing vats seem things of beauty. Parting from Hecate inside the gate, Ranifer hurried into the shop to begin his first task, that of helping the weigher and the scribe issue each man's portion of gold. Rake and the craftsman had not yet arrived, but the storeroom door was open, and the older apprentices were lining up in front of the scales. The weigher emerged from the storeroom with the basket of ingots, just as Ranifer took his place beside the waiting scribe. Rejoice, friends, puffed the weigher, bobbing his head into the room in general. We will begin. Name the master's wishes, Hotepec. 4 measures to the apprentice Hapiao for beating into a sheet, droned the scribe, reading from the tablet and at the same time keeping a sharp eye on the scales. As his companion weighed out ingots equal 4 measures. Done, the weigher grunted as the scales balanced. 4 measures to Hapiao, echoed Ranifer. He dug the ingots out of the leather weighing bag and handed them to the apprentice. The scribe made a mark on his tablet and read the next instruction. 1/2 measure to Garrett, together with 1/20th measure of copper and of silver for preparing solder. The morning ritual went on, each worker accepting his portion from Ranifer and carrying it to the courtyard to begin his task, while the scribe kept strict account of every grain. Rake the goldsmith arrived as the last measure was doled out. He greeted the men in his deep, gentle voice, smiled at Ranifer, and bade him make ready the big furnace. As the boy started for the charcoal bin, Rake limped past him and spoke to the scribe. Well, Hotepec? Master, the figures remain the same, though I checked them thrice over. The weights do not tally. Again, we are lacking. It is not a large amount, but still it is gone. Rake was silent, and the boy dared not turn from the bin of charcoal to look at his face. He did not mean to. Too well he could imagine the kindly eyes clouding, the smile fading into discouragement. Rake sighed. I do not understand it, he murmured. Ah, well, we shall have to take other steps, though I do not know what. Weigh all sweepings again today. Aye, master. Ranifer bent over the bin, outwardly intent on scooping charcoal into the furnace pan, inwardly cursing the Babylonian and Gebu alike. Rake's limping footsteps stopped behind him. Anubis save us, that is enough charcoal, boy, the goldsmith said in a tone of mild surprise. It's only a small box I wish to solder, not Pharaoh's throne. I crave pardon, Neb Goldsmith, the boy mumbled, hastily returning a scoop or two of the black lumps into the bin. It's of no moment. Rake hesitated, then added, Your shoulder is better today. I'm glad, Shari. There was affection in his voice, and his use of the term small one brought sudden tears to Renifer's eyes. So vividly did he recall his father's voice using that very endearment. He scowled fiercely to cover his emotion, and not knowing what to say to Rake, made no answer at all. In a fluster of self-consciousness, he turned his back, dropped a hot coal into the nest of charcoal in the furnace, and began to blow on it rigorously. Gently, gently, exclaimed Rake. Blow only a little at first, or the flame will not come. Some time before midday you had best make more charcoal. The bin is nearly empty. He limped on to his bench to resume work on the jewel box he was making for the tomb of a wealthy Theban. Ranifer, flushing hot as he coaxed the flame, could only fume at his own bungling. Again he had behaved rudely to one whose friendship he most desired. Could he not have at least thanked Rek for his concern about the shoulder? Could he not have smiled? And why, oh why, had he puffed away at that charcoal like an ignorant novice when he had known for years exactly how to coax a flame into being? Rake would think him a dullard, unfit to learn the goldsmith's trade. Well, he would prove otherwise somehow. Ranifer's brow cleared and his heart lightened again. He could not stay gloomy today, knowing the trouble would soon be gone from Rake's gentle eyes. There would be no gold missing this week, nor the next, forever. Giving a last puff to the fire, which was now blazing merrily, he hurried to answer the first craftsman call. It was the middle of the morning before he had a moment to spare for the depleted charcoal bin. Glancing into it guiltily, he snatched up a basket and plunged out into the sunny courtyard before anyone else could cry, "Ranifer, come hither." He was filling his basket at the wood box when Hecate came up beside him. "I was looking for you, friend. The ever-scowling first craftsman bids me ask if you would be making charcoal today." "Aye, this very minute." "Good then, I'm to watch you and learn how it's done. Will you teach me?" "Gladly." Feeling a pleased importance, Ranifer led the way across the sun-warmed pavement to an idle furnace. "If you do it yourself, you will remember better. See that copper box? Fill it with these little logs from the basket." "Aye, Neb Ranifer." With a grin and mock obeisance, Hecate began to arrange logs in the firing box, and Ranifer used his moment of leisure to watch the work going on around him. Eagerly his eyes moved from bench to bench, sliding over Hapia-O, who was still beating ingots into sheets, lingering on the older apprentice next to him, who was winding gold wire about a rod, preparatory to clipping it into links for a necklace. Ranifer waited until he thrust it into the fire for annealing, and made careful note of the exact dull red it reached before it was pulled out again. Across the way, young Maria knelt before one of the shaping stakes, hammering his first bowl. Maria's brow was furrowed, and Ranifer's ear told him why. The metal was not ringing true. The sound set Ranifer's teeth on edge. Maria would have a sorry and crooked bowl, he reflected, if he did not hold his elbow higher, and he must stiffen his wrist, or that sharp-edged hammer would leave marks all over the gold. The craftsman should have given him one of those round-faced horn hammers weighted with lead for his first attempt. Sutra would have done so. "Is it enough, Master Ranifer?" came Hecate's voice. "It may be I could crowd in one or two more logs, but—" "No, that's enough," said Ranifer, hastily returning to the business at hand. "Now the lid must go on, but do not fasten it too tightly, or there will be no place for the gases to escape. We will do it thus, do you see? Leaving a little space there." He helped Hecate wire the box shut, then turned to stir up the fire. "Now take the other handle, friend. We'll set the box in the furnace. So, there's nothing else to it. But when the gases have all escaped, then the wood will be charcoal, and one may take it off to the fire to cool. Is it not simple?" "Simple if you know the trick of it," remarked the vulture as she laid a falcon egg. Hecat chuckled at his own joke, then waved Renifer away. Go on to your next task, friend. I'll see this done. Many thanks for the lesson. Today he does not ask me questions about myself, thought Renifer as he moved away. Perhaps he understands that I do not wish to answer them. We shall be friends after all. Pang, pong, pang. Once more the sour notes of the hammer offended Ranofer's practiced ear. He paused behind Maria's bench, squirming inwardly as he watched the work being done all wrong. Finally, with some misgivings, he touched the apprentice's elbow. What is it? Can't you see I'm busy? Marius scowled over his shoulder. He was a youth of about 17, with the blunt hands of a farmer. Gold working did not come easy to him, and it was obvious his poor results with the bowl had ruined his usual even disposition. I crave pardon, friend, Ranofer said. I know why your bowl is not shaping properly. Will you allow me to tell you? Mollified by the courteous tone, Marius shrugged his big shoulders. Well, what then? You think you know. It's certain I don't. You're not striking the metal true. Hold your elbow higher and bring the hammer down smartly. Then it will shape as you wish. Maria frowned suspiciously from Ranofer to the hammer. Perhaps it will, perhaps not. If I strike it sharply, will it not mar the surface even more? See the hammer marks there already? You should have a different hammer, one with a round face, but this one will not mark if you keep your wrist very stiff and firm to control your aim. Would you let me show you? I won't then. You might ruin it. I might, Ranofer agreed humbly. I have little skill and less experience. But I've watched my father raise 100 such bowls, and I know it should be done. Perhaps you do, perhaps you don't, the other grumbled. But he looked thoughtful. Once more he placed his half-formed bowl upon the shaping stake, and, raising his elbow high, gave a sharp, firm tap. The stake rang like music. Maria's face brightened. He turned the bowl upon the stake and struck again, then again, then again. Each time the ring was true, and already the curve of the metal was beginning to assume the proper angle. By Aemon, you're right. Aye, quite right, put in an amused, quiet voice. Both turned to find the goldsmith leaning on the next bench. He straightened, limped over to Maria, and taking the hammer from his hand, dropped it into its slot in the tool rack. Try the cow's horn mallet, my son, he advised. It will not play tricks on you. As for you, Ranofer, he turned interested eyes on the younger boy. Come with me, I have a task for you. Blushing with pleasure and confusion, Ranofer followed him to one of the smaller furnaces. Upon the low table beside it lay a stone hammering block and a coil of gold wire. Rake motioned for him to kneel on the mat and, extracting a mallet from the tool rack attached to the table, handed it to him. Now, small one, you know something, it seems, of the gold worker's art. Do you know the manner of making the little leaves we use to ornament ladies' jewelry? Aye, master. Good. Make one now while I watch. Ranofer dared not believe his ears. I make one, Neb Rake? Out of real gold? Rake only nodded toward the coil of wire and waited. Trembling with excitement, Ranofer could scarcely make his fingers loosen a strand of the wire and straighten it. He, Ranofer, was to be allowed to work in gold, to learn a bit, to practice, to fashion a leaf. Aye, might the gods smile on Rake the goldsmith. Might they make him rich and honored. Might Pharaoh himself shower gold upon him. Ranofer's mind, fluttering as uselessly as his fingers, focused suddenly upon the fire. Was it hot enough? He stirred it, then glanced anxiously at Rake. May I use the blowpipe, master? Use whatever you need. Once clasping the familiar shape of the blowpipe, Ranofer's hand steadied and so did his nerves. He could do this. He had done it many times, with Thutra watching from his cot. There was nothing new. Just snip a length of wire, grasp it firmly in the little tongs, and careful now. With infinite caution, Ranifer held the tip of the wire in the flame, blowing a light, steady stream of air through the pipe. The flame blued to intense heat. Presently the wire tip melted and ran up into a bead. At once Ranifer removed it to the stone block, dropped the blowpipe, and seized the mallet instead. One sharp tap, and the bead flattened to a tiny leaf shape, with the remainder of the wire its stem. He studied it anxiously, running his tongue over his lips. Was it good enough? Perhaps the stem too long, the edge too thick? He raised his eyes slowly to the goldsmith's face. Rake was smiling. He was nodding approval at the leaf. It is a good leaf, Ranifer, but then it was the first, and here I was behind you, watching every move. One is always diligent with the first. I wonder, would you use such care in making a 15th or a 50th? To be sure, master, Ranifer said in surprise. How could I do otherwise? Without care, the leaf is ruined, and it must be done over. Aye, so it must. Rake picked up the leaf and examined it once more, then put it aside on the bench. Very well. This day the Lady Erin Ma'at has ordered a necklace of many strands, ornamented with green stones and golden leaves. Fashion me those leaves, 50 of them, each one the twin of the last. When you have made them, bring them to me in the shop. He turned and limped away, leaving Ranifer staring after him in a ferment of joy. 50 leaves. He was to make the ornaments for a grand lady's necklace. Perhaps she would wear it to a dinner party at the villa of some great lord or count, perhaps to the palace itself. Aye, to the palace, and Queen T, beloved beloved of the two lands, would notice it and ask whence it came, and who had fashioned those delicate leaves, each one a work of art, and Pharaoh himself would lean from his throne to see the necklace better, and to work, stupid one, Ranifer chided himself. Dreaming will fashion no works of art. Cease gawking at the gold. Use it. The day passed in a blissful haze, which not even the gnawing of Ranifer's empty stomach could penetrate. Even after the leaves were finished, the 50th, the twin of the first, and all made with supreme and loving care, his spirits continued to soar. Perhaps Rake would now let him make leaves every day, perhaps allow him to anneal wire, spread solder just so on the boxes, and learn and become skillful. Even back at his old chores of washing the sweep and pouring molds, Ranifer's rapt face and hurrying small body radiated such joyful hope that a contagion of laughter and joking swept over the whole courtyard. Even the first craftsman ceased to scowl, though he could not have told why. At last the day was done, a good day, a fine, fortunate day, favored by all the gods. It lacked but one thing to place the seal of total success upon it, and that would take place very soon. Ranifer timed his leaving to coincide with Hakett's. With his friend beside him, he stepped confidently out the courtyard gate into the long shadows striping the street of the goldsmiths. At once he spotted the Babylonian waiting for him in a doorway ahead. He walked on, a little nervous now, but trying not to show it. Surely with Hecate beside him, Ibni would not even dare approach him. Ibni was not so easily put off. As the two boys drew even with his doorway, he stepped out, grinning and bobbing his head, holding out the wineskin. A little gift for your honored brother, young Ranifer. I pray you carry it home to him. True, it is a poor gift and unworthy of him, but the wine is made by my wife from our own dates, and though humble, Ranifer drew a long breath and faced him. Goblet does not want it, he said. He bids me tell you, He does not like your wine." Without waiting to see the effect of his words, he hurried on. Hackett followed, glancing back over his shoulder. "A queer fellow, that boarder," he remarked. "I think you offended him, friend Ranulpher. He has an ugly glint in his eye." "Let him. I'll not fetch and carry for such a one. I think he's half crocodile, with his grin and his stinking breath." Ranulpher swelled with satisfaction. He had bested his enemy with exactly the scornful phrases he had imagined this morning, and the seal of success was on the day. He dismissed Ibni from his mind, sniffing the air luxuriously. The shop's hot odor of molten gold had given way to the fragrance of lotus and marshweed, mingled with the familiar reek of the Nile and the pungent smell of natron and spices from the street of the embalmers, which they were passing at the moment. To Ranulpher, light-headed with hunger and triumph, all the world seemed tinged with remarkable beauty. The western cliffs burned amber in the last of the sunshine. To the north, a falcon wheeled slowly over the shining walls of Pharaoh's palace, as if to proclaim the presence within of the royal god-king he symbolized. Yonder from the fields, like flute notes, sounded the creaking of the water wheels. "The gods smile on Egypt," murmured Ranulpher. "And on you too today, is it not so? I saw you making leaves there like some elder craftsman, and by the hidden one the master himself could have done no better." Ranulpher drank in the praise and the respectful glance which accompanied it. "My father taught me how to make them." In a burst of confiding, he added, "Perhaps Rake will teach me more now. Perhaps some day I shall be a master goldsmith and make necklaces for the queen." "May Amen grant it," Hackett replied warmly. "Then perhaps you will smile more often." They walked on in sudden silence, each a little abashed by his own sincerity. As the familiar palm-thatched outlines of the apprentices' quarters loomed ahead, Hackett resumed his usual flippant tone. "Behold, the great palace of the downtrodden approaches. Is it not a monument fit for the gods themselves? Ay, what a life we lead there! Dancing, parties, mad frivolity. Well, friend, I must leave you now, as the hare remarked to the hunter. Farewell, and may Nuit guard your sleep." Ranulpher grinned and waved, reflecting that anyone would smile more often when Hackett was around. He went on alone, trying to ignore the aroma of frying fish that drifted from the apprentices' quarters, and, it seemed, from every other house he passed. In spite of himself, there rose in his mind the image of a golden-brown bolty fish, crisp without and succulent within, served on a platter and giving off fragrances sweeter than the lotus. To not think of it, he ordered himself. To forget it, he began to run, almost colliding with a group of glassmakers as he turned into the main thoroughfare that parallels the Nile. He dodged in and out among the homebound workers, shouting greetings to Kai, the baker's boy, and a few other urchins he knew. He was turning his whole attention to physical activity so that he might not notice the nagging uneasiness beginning to force its way into the conscious part of his mind. It grew stronger the nearer he drew to the street of the Crooked Dog, but the stronger it grew the faster he ran, refusing to let it in, shoring up the bulwarks of his mind against it. Only when he drew up, breathless, at his own doorway, and flung it open and stepped inside, did his defenses crumble like faulty dikes. Faced with the dingy, familiar courtyard, all the eager hopes of the day vanished beneath a torrent of blackest fear. He had come home empty-handed. He had defied Gebut. In vain he tried to summon the proud resolve, the brave words he had planned last night. Behind him, the gate swung shut with a click like the jaws of a crocodile closing, and yonder, across the court, Gebut rose slowly from the bottom stair. Half an hour later, Ranofer sat hunched on the rough pavement of the courtyard, trying to stop the bleeding of his nose. Gebu still stood over him. His face was rock hard, save for the convulsively winking eye. His fists were like stones. He spoke in a voice that was hoarse with fury. Has understanding now entered your head, slow-witted one? Ranofer managed to nod. He could not speak. His body was raw with pain. His mind was like a disordered room still ringing with panic. I am ready to instruct you further if need be. You will bring the wineskin tomorrow to atone for your empty hands tonight. You'll bring it next time also, and the next, and the next. Do you hear? Do you understand? Again Ranofer nodded, and the fresh welt on his back throbbed like a fist opening and closing. Gebu continued to glare at him a moment. Then he thoughtfully fished a particle of food from between his teeth. By Amen, I'll wager you'd hop fast enough if you were under my eye all day. You've grown lazy and insolent, playing about with gold, doing as you please. How would you like it, spawn of the crocodiles, if you were never to walk through Rake's doorway again? Ranofer raised startled eyes, and Gebu's lips twisted. Aye, you had best dance to my tune. You are a goldsmith's helper, is it not what you want? Fail me once more, only once, and you'll find yourself a stone-cutter's apprentice instead. I must have some use of you. He moved up on the stair, leaving Ranofer aghast. Stone-cutter's apprentice? Apprentice to Gebu? Within reach of his fists all day, pounding chisel against stone with great heavy mallets instead of fashioning leaves or watching the gold turn crimson in the crucible. 7 years of bondage, all the while learning a craft he hated, with never a chance for the one he loved. Dismay changed quickly to despair. It's no use, he thought. No use. No use. Dazed with pain and hunger, he crept to his mat and buried his head in his arms.